So I've never done a book review before, but I just finished Stormbird a couple days ago, just 2 days ago, I believe. And I thought it would be fun to watch the review videos because I I've never made a book review video and I only watched them. Well, this time I was really disappointed because I only could find two review videos over Stormbird, and they were both like calling it boring and stuff like that. So I just really felt the need to get, for the people that actually enjoy stuff like this to, watch a good review because I really enjoyed this book. Yeah, I've already started on book two, and I will say book two is already way better so far, but that doesn't mean this book is not good. So that's what I'm going to talk about is Stormbird. If you've ever watched Game of Thrones, or like obsessed with it, then you probably know that it was inspired a lot by the Wars of the Roses. Well, this this book series, there's four of them. This is the first one, and it's really before the war starts, but it's sort of like giving you the little details of why it started and everything. None of the main battles happen in this book, so if that's what you're wanting, you're not going to get any of that. But it's still a great book. I love it. Like, Margaret is portrayed how she should be portrayed, in my opinion, because so many people make her out to be this evil queen. Um, she gets a bad rap from a lot of historians and a lot of people that write books, and I don't really think it's justified. I really don't, because she started out just a young girl, marrying Henry VI, and it shows, her innocence and everything from the beginning. In this book, she might turn out to be evil later, but that's not the point. Here you get to see a different view of Margaret of Anjou, and she really is sort of the biggest character in the book. I wouldn't I wouldn't call her the main character because there's a lot of main characters, but you could call her the main character. Margaret, it starts off with her in France, when she's just a little girl. I think she's about 14, and then she moves over and marries Henry and all that. So you really get to see her personality and everything come through, and her friendship with William de la Pole, who's the Duke of Suffolk. Suffolk. Why can't I say that name? Suffolk. Suffolk. Anyway, and another thing is you get to see the storyline of William de la Pole, who is, I think, left out a lot. And I've not read very many books that portray him to be how this book does, and I'm so glad the book does it him justice too, because I really like him, and his the way he was treated was not very cool. So if you are a fan of William de la Pole, which probably there's not a lot of fans out there that are, but that's not the point. I'm a nerd and I like this kind of stuff. Then you get to see a part of him and what makes his wheels spin. I mean, it doesn't go into a lot of detail on him until maybe later. And there are some problems with the book. Um, I would say the part that bothered me the most is probably Conn Igulden's favorite part. One of his favorite parts of the book is Derry. Um, he's the spy master, and he's a really big character, and he's a fun character. I love Derry in the books. He's great. He really does make for a good storyline, but there's no proof of Derry. Like, he made Derry up, and it's good. It really is. It's just, it's so weird whenever you really like history. You don't want it changed up too much. That's one thing I hated about Rain, is them throwing in Sebastian because he never existed. But yeah, Derry doesn't exist, but he does in this book, and he's a lovable character. At least I think he is. He's fun. I mean, he's kind of heartless sometimes, but he's funny, and I like a little bit of comedy. I mean, it's like witty comedy, I guess. I mean, I don't know. You have to like boring stuff, I guess, because I find this stuff fascinating, and I know a lot of people are just like, so boring. But I'm a nerd, and I like all the little details. I wanted a little more detail. I mean, I do love the fact that he had so many characters and told so many different views, and that's something that one of the reviews had a problem with, is there was so many storylines going on and so many different characters, and it kind of, they said that you didn't really get attached to any of them. Well, that's not true for me. I got attached to Margaret of Anjou. I got attached to Derry. I got attached to William de la Pole. Tell you who I didn't get attached to was Richard, Duke of York, and I'm so glad somebody's portraying him to be the villain, because that's how I've always viewed Richard, Duke of York, is a douchebag. So it sort of, and it probably makes him more evil than he was in the first book, anyway. Yeah, he's kind of a big jerk, and Cecily is viewed as really not very nice either. I never liked her either. Doesn't really show Warwick too much, but anyway, the events, the end of this book is probably, it starts sort of like the beginning of trying to figure out the marriage of Margaret Anjou to, for France and England to have peace. So they find him a wife that's basically a French princess, and then it ends after. I don't really want to say. I know it's not spoiling, because you should know if you know your history. It's just, I feel like it's like, I'll just say that it ends with Henry losing it, like whenever he goes mad and goes into his comatose state where he just can't talk or anything. He can't function. If I know everyone perceives Henry to be this like simple-minded king, blah 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 blah, which I don't buy at all. Especially because he put in so much work in the church and education. If somebody's putting so much work in education, they can't be that dumb. I just don't think he was an aggressive person, and you couldn't be aggressive. I mean, you couldn't not be aggressive if you were going to be a king, and he wasn't. And Margaret was, but this doesn't show really Margaret being aggressive yet. And Henry is simple-minded in this book. Like, he's almost like dumb. I mean, like, not dumb, but just like doesn't function very well, but it's because he's sick. And in this book it shows him getting sick. Like, and I think that's pretty cool, because it kind of gives an excuse to why before he goes into his state. So the next book he will wake up, and which you should know that anyway if you know history. And he actually shows he's better, he's portrayed better. So I think book 2 is amazing so far. But this isn't about book 2, but that's not the point. I'm just saying that if you can get through book 1 and you don't like it, you will love Henry whenever book 2 comes around. Also, another interesting character in this book is Thomas. I think it's Woodchurch. He's an archer. And I was reading, or the review I was not reading, but watching, said they got bored with the archery stuff. Not me. I was fascinated by it. I love the story of Thomas and his son, and it was really written well. I loved it. Good. And then I will say the thing I didn't really care too much for was the Jack Cade rebellion. I'm just like I feel like the storyline was probably better. It could have been done better. But it starts so late in the book that you kind of like thrown off, I guess. Maybe it wasn't that late, it just seemed like it because you already knew all the other characters. But you have to do that with history because they weren't important before. Or the character wasn't. And there's not very much known about Jack Cade, so he had to go with it. And I think that he went with as much information as he could to make Jack a strong character. Didn't really like Jack, but I found myself liking him more by the end of it. But it was very interesting to see his side of the story. So if you like history, then you need to read this book because it's so good. I mean, of course, it's got its own little problems like Derry, and I don't even know if Thomas Woodchurch is a real person. But I loved his character. I have no idea if he was real. I've Googled him and I can't find him, but... oh yeah, and there was one other issue. If you're a nerd, you know that Henry Beaufort was not alive during all this. Well, he was. I think he was alive whenever Henry married Margaret. I'm pretty sure that Henry Beaufort was alive. Cardinal Beaufort. Isn't that right? Yeah. He died around 1447, so I think they got married in like 1443 or 44. But anyway, in the book, he's there at William de la Pole's trial, and this is 1450, and you're like, he's dead. What's that about? But it's okay. I mean, like, he explains it at the end. He explains, at the very end of the book, he explains why he did what he did, why he put in everything he did. And I really think that's good in a writer to do. Explain yourself instead of leaving us confused. But, yeah, if you like history and this kind of stuff doesn't bore you, then this is the type of book for you, especially if you like Wars of the Roses and like all the little details in it. This is sort of before all that happens, and if you see Mr. Duke of York as the villain, then you're definitely going to love this book. I'm excited. I cannot wait to finish Trinity, and then I'll make a review on that. I don't know if I did a good job, but yeah. I really liked Stormbird, and I recommend anyone that loves history to read this book.